Greetings, children of the screen, your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again, and I just watched the newest film in the Snyderverse, Suicide Squad 2, or just Suicide Squad as it's being called, because I think Warner Brothers would like you as much as possible to forget about the previous movie. There are some elements that carry over, but in general, they just kind of want you to pretend that that movie doesn't exist. And you know what? I'm kind of happy to do that for them for the sake of this movie, because the movie I just watched is the best movie in the Snyderverse? Right on, guys. So, just a heads up, this video will have some slight spoilers in it, but I'm going to try to save those till the end. That way you can watch the video up until the point where I let you know there's about to be spoilers if you have not seen the movie as of yet. But let's go ahead and dive into this thing, because I'm excited to talk about it. It's no secret that here on the channel I have not enjoyed a large cross-section of the films that are in the Snyderverse. Now, there are a few of them that I really liked. I really liked Wonder Woman. I enjoyed Aquaman. It was a dumb movie, but I liked it. I really enjoyed Shazam, and I think that's it. But the warehouse fight in Batman vs. Superman was really cool. Anyway, the point is, I haven't really enjoyed all that many of them, but this one, despite being in the Snyderverse, I have to say, I absolutely fucking loved this movie. It was awesome from start to finish. I was never bored, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Now, I do want to mention that it is hilarious that up to like even 2 weeks before this movie came out, the Snyderverse fans were review bombing this movie, giving it horrible reviews on a movie that they had not seen, and then at the end of it going, "Bring back Zack Snyder, hashtag restore the Snyderverse," despite the fact that this movie is clearly in the same universe, and that Zack Snyder is the top billed producer on that movie. Although, in fairness, he had little to nothing to do with the movie itself, and it really shows, because it's a great movie. Like, honestly, I'm going to get into details here in a second, but I recommend this movie. It's absolutely fantastic. And don't worry, I'm prepared for all the hate, especially because at this point, as of right now, I've received at least 30 death threats from the Snyderverse fan base on my previous videos that I've done covering the Snyderverse. So don't worry, as long as you're not telling me those kind of things, then I don't mind hearing you out, because I'm aware that the majority of the fan base for the Snyderverse are actually just really good people who enjoyed those movies and are very passionate about them, and for those people I'm very happy that they got the Snyder Cut and all that stuff. But yeah, 30 death threats, which is weird again, because like on YouTube I have plenty of friends who also do YouTube and have covered the Snyderverse. None of them have gotten death threats, so I'm not sure what it is about me in particular that you know, generates that response out of people. Also, when I say death threats, I'm also including all the people who told me to go kill myself, which is really hilarious considering the fact that so many of the Snyderverse fans were pushing the Snyderverse as a suicide awareness type thing. That's really hilarious. Anyway, all that aside, let's talk about this movie. So, Suicide Squad is 100% a pure James Gunn movie, and that is what makes it as awesome as it is. James Gunn, at his core, is twisted, fucked up, and hilarious with a huge heart, and all of that is just dripping, just oozing off of this movie. And it is the James Gunn that we got in movies like Slither or movies like Super, but with the shackles of budgetary restrictions just thrown off, like given all the money that he needs to do everything he wants to do and just let loose. And it is remarkable. Now, don't get me wrong, Guardians of the Galaxy, I enjoy both those movies. I actually would say that I love those movies. They're fantastic movies, but you can also tell that, like, because they are Marvel movies and Disney movies, James Gunn was forced to pull back a little bit on his James Gunniness, and because of the fact that I love James Gunn, this movie just spoke to me in a way that those movies, while I love them, do not. So what is it that makes this movie so indicatively James Gunn and made me love it? Let's start off at the top. The plot. The plot is, like with a lot of the best James Gunn movies, it's what you would consider to be kind of a generic and typical plot for the kind of movie that it is, but the way that he injects character and humor into that plot and subverts that plot in certain places really is what makes it stand out. And again, because this is an ensemble movie with one of the largest ensembles that we've seen from any of these movies, way bigger an ensemble than Justice League, those characters are really what make this movie, and the characterization of them, and the way that they're depicted, and not just depicted in terms of the writing, but even in like the camera angles that he chose to use, and the cinematography that he chose to kind of show those characters' internal world depicted in this film. All of that is absolutely fantastic. Now, this film does have several characters who return from the previous movie. We have Rick Flag, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Amanda Waller. Those are the main characters who return. Why? Because we didn't give a crap about any of those other characters from the previous movie, and despite the fact that it was a Suicide Squad movie, most of those characters lived, but a lot of them, we're not seeing them here. The one thing that I will say in this movie's working against this movie is that the character of Bloodsport, which is played brilliantly by Idris Elba and is a very fun character, there are definitely moments where you can see that in the early days of kind of developing this script that was intended to be Deadshot, and then for one reason or another they decided to switch up the character. There's a lot of little beats and little moments where you can definitely feel that, but I think that Idris Elba and the writing around him to make him different from that character really brings a lot to it and helps kind of set that apart, so it doesn't hurt the movie that much. In fact, if you're not someone like me who is a filmmaker and a screenwriter, I really don't even think you're going to notice that much. But his character's great, and most of the returning characters are great. Amanda Waller is pretty much what we would expect from Amanda Waller. You know, Captain Boomerang is Captain Boomerang. Rick Flag is Rick Flag, but better. In the last movie, Rick Flag was very subdued, and he was good for like the function of the plot, but he wasn't really a standout character. And in this movie, there are many, many moments that allow that character to stand out and really endear you to him in a way that the previous movie did not do. Harley Quinn, likewise, everyone loves Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. She's fantastic in the role, but most people haven't really cared for the movies she's done as Harley as much as they've liked her in the movie. And a lot of that has to do with the writing of the character and what they do with her in those films. And in this movie, she's the most Harley we've ever seen. It might be her best performance because she's given the best material to work with and really let that character sing, let that character breathe and inhabit the role in a way that we've never really seen her be able to do. And to steal a quote from the Harley Quinn, animated series, Harley's a bad guy, but that doesn't mean she's a bad person. And in particular with this movie and its characters, not just the ones that came from the last movie, but even the new characters, that is something that is very much true of the best of these characters. The characters who you really end up liking, the characters that we're really endeared to in this movie, they're definitely bad guys. They're bad guys who've done bad things, but at their core, they're not bad people. And when push comes to shove, they want to do the right thing, which gives us a really great character arc for these characters, because one of the big failings of the original movie in terms of the characters and its overall plot was that by the end of that movie, they wanted you to feel like those characters were heroes. But we didn't give a crap about most of those characters. Most of those characters were vacant, blank slates that just had little bitty quips of dialogue here and there that they could throw into the trailer, but we never really felt a sense of kind of unity between them. We never felt that those characters came together and became a team in a way that would make their struggles and the story matter, and also didn't really come together in a way that at the end of the movie, when they do their big turn, where they're really going out to be heroes, that it mattered and that we felt it. This movie does that. It does that in spades. All of these characters in this movie feel like real people. Yes, they're slightly heightened. They are comic book characters in a certain way, but everybody from Harley and Rick Flag down to like Polka Dot Man and the Thinker are characterized in a way that you can actually empathize with them on some level, whether you're supposed to like them or dislike them. They feel like people who really inhabit this world, and that goes such a long way to making this movie like not only enjoyable, but making it hit you in an emotional way, like so many of James Gunn's movies do. And I'm not even gonna lie, there's a couple of moments in this movie where I was so emotionally invested that I teared up a little bit, where I was like, stop being a little bitch. This is a Suicide Squad movie, you're not supposed to do that. So as I said, the characters are great, the cast is great. There's not a single person in this movie who's miscast. Every single person who's in this does an excellent job and hits all of the important beats just absolutely perfectly. It's fantastic in terms of being an ensemble. Also, like, the balancing between all those characters works out really, really well, despite some strange things with, like, time jumps, which when they first happened, I was like, oh god, you're gonna do this thing? But then when I see what they're doing with it and the way that it affects the narrative, it actually works out really, really well. Which then takes me to my next little bit perfectly, which is the plot, the narrative of the movie. It is, as I said earlier, kind of standard, kind of boilerplate, but that works in two very big ways to this movie's advantage. Number one is that that's kind of what the Suicide Squad stories are, and, you know, like, I read lots of Suicide Squad stories, and, like, they're all very kind of typical, like, Black Ops stories with interesting characters in them, especially when they're done well. And every now and then they do something bigger and more over the top, but that's kind of standard with Suicide Squad. In fact, one of my big issues with the first movie is from the beginning of that movie, it's like, their job is to go save the world. And it's like, that's not who the Suicide Squad is, man. Like, that's not the kind of missions they get sent on. And this movie starts off as a job that the Suicide Squad would be sent on, and then escalates into something else, which again is pretty standard, but the other thing that it has going for it is the fact that they've got James Gunn behind this, and with James Gunn, he knows how to subvert that plot in just the right places to make it differentiate itself from all the other kind of stories like this and make it stand out. And he does an excellent job with it. So the next thing I want to mention is the special effects in the movie. So the special effects in any superhero movie are always a point of contention for a lot of people. Because, you know, does it look right? Does it look real? Does it look too real? And this movie walks that line exceedingly well. In general, the effects in the movie are absolutely fantastic. The things that are supposed to look real, for the most part, do. There are some effects, and specifically with some of the characters in the movie, that are a little bit more stylized, and that really works in favor of the tone of this movie. But they never look so stylized that it pulls you out of the reality of this universe. Like, you never are like, oh, wow, now it looks like I'm watching a cutscene from a video game. Like in the Doomsday fight from Batman vs. Superman, where it's just like, this is clearly just real people put into a cutscene from a video game. Like, no. This movie, even with characters like King Shark, who is a silly character in this movie, so his character design is a little bit more caricature-ish. It's a little bit more cartoony in places, and it's meant to be because they're doing a more comedic version of this character, and it really helps sell that. But I would say that it looks as good as the one from the Flash TV show, which looks amazing, especially for a TV show. Like, there's no reason why that version of that character should look that good in the show, and he absolutely does. In this, they actually go for a slightly less realistic look for King Shark, but again, that's because of the tone. In the Flash show, they're trying to sell that character more as a legitimate threat, so you need him to look more realistic. And in this one, they're selling him as more of a comedic character, so it actually works to its advantage. And that's the thing, is like, special effects don't always have to look 100% photo real, as long as the effect that you're doing for a specific moment or a character plays into the emotions that you want to have connected to them. And again, this movie in every respect does that. There are moments with Starro, who, that's not a spoiler, we've seen that in the trailers, everybody has. With Starro, there are moments that are meant to be a little bit sillier, and in those moments they kind of play up the attributes of that character that are a little bit more cartoony or a little bit more comic booky. But in the moments where it needs to be kind of a scary, ominous monster, they find ways without changing the character design to really play into that. A lot of that using camera angles and lighting and shadow. So you never feel like you're looking at a different creature, it's just your perspective on it has changed. So your emotion that's attached to it has changed. So again, it's like all the effects in the movie are absolutely fantastic, and they work perfectly for the objective that they're trying to achieve in that moment. Okay guys, so here is the warning. I am about to go into some spoilers because there are some things about this movie that I absolutely loved that I need to talk about, and in order to do that, I'm going to have to give some spoilers. So this is your moment to dip out. Let's give those people a second to, you know, dip, and go do the thing, and yeah, okay, so, oh my gosh, as I said, there were a couple of moments in this movie that did make me kind of emotional, and most of those moments revolved around character deaths. Now, in the first Suicide Squad movie, not many of those characters died. In fact, one of those characters died, and it was the character who we all knew was gonna die because he doesn't get a name card, and he's very, like, reduced in the trailer. So we all knew going in. It was just so predictable. In this movie, there are characters who die that you do not expect to die. And each time that happened, for me, it had an effect. But more importantly, there are characters who die who I kind of assumed would die, but the movie did such a good job of establishing them that by the time they died, I gave a crap. So, first off, I'm going to be listing some of the characters who die here and talking about it. Again, spoilers, in case anybody for some reason didn't stick around after that ridiculousness I did a second ago. So, Captain Boomerang. Captain Boomerang dies in the opening sequence, along with about half of the cast of this movie. James Gunn was not fucking around with this Suicide Squad movie. Like, he created a body count. This movie has a higher body count than some horror movies I've seen, than actually a lot of horror movies I've seen. And in the opening sequence, Boomerang bites it, which a lot of people aren't fans of Jai Courtney. I'm not a big fan of Jai Courtney, but he was, other than Harley Quinn, probably the best characterization of one of these characters from the first movie. He embodied Captain Boomerang in a way that made me go, yes, that is the character, and I love it. And I was excited that he was back in this movie. And they kill him in the opening, which is great because it definitely made me go, oh, Boomerang! But it also set up the stakes. If it was only characters who were brand new to this movie being killed off, despite the fact that Michael Rooker's one of them, and I absolutely love Michael Rooker, and because he's worked with James Gunn before, I did kind of assume that that character would stick around a little bit longer. Killing him off isn't as big a deal, because it's not a character who's from the first movie that you already have an attachment to. By killing off Boomerang, it lets you know that the stakes are real in this movie, and that any of these characters, except for Harley Quinn, because she's a cash cow, could go. And that is something that is good to establish as I talk about the next death that really got to me, which was Rick Flag. Damn it. Now, in the first movie, I didn't really give a shit about Rick Flag. Again, I thought that the actor did a decent enough job, and I thought that he functioned well enough in the very poorly written narrative that they had constructed, but I didn't really care about him. This movie does an amazing job of making you like Rick Flag, making you understand why other characters would be drawn to Rick Flag and why they would trust him, and showing that he is a good leader, and that despite the fact that he's taking care of all these, criminals, these bad guys, that, he does actually care about what happens to them. So, in the movie, when they finally kill him off, it was not something I was happy about. And again, I appreciate it, and I like it in the movie, but it hurt me a little bit. And what sells that moment so well is the fact that frickin' John Cena's character in the movie is the one who kills him. They get into a fight over a piece of information where Rick Flag finds out that the whole Starro program is actually a U.S. invention, and he wants to reveal that to the press. And one of John Cena's character's goals sent by Waller is to not let that information get out. So they get into a fight, and he ends up killing him. And there's two great moments in this that really sell the emotionality of it. One being that John Cena's character basically tells him, look, I will I will protect America by any means necessary, even if that means killing you, but don't make me do it. You're a hero. I consider you, he lets him know that he considers him to be a hero, and he doesn't want to do this. And when he says it, the look in John Cena's eyes, I have to say, I was really fucking impressed with John Cena in these moments. Because John Cena is a wrestler, and wrestlers are actors, but I've never really seen anything from John Cena to convince me that he's a great or a good actor. Just he's good at what he does. But these moments were emotional beats that I've never seen him hit before. And he sells them. He sells them hard. There's also an amazing moment when he actually kills Rick Flag. He stabs him in the chest. And there's this moment where you look at John Cena's face as he's watching Rick Flag die, and they're looking at each other, and you can just see John Cena's fucking heartbreak that he just had to do this. He believes it's the right thing to do. He believes that it's what he has to do. But you can see that it breaks his heart. And then another character, he goes after them because they want the same thing. And again, you can see that it is just breaking his heart, but he's going to do it because he believes it's what has to be done. And that moment is heartbreaking because, again, they make you believe in the camaraderie that is built between these characters in this movie. So when you get to it, there are emotional stakes. and it's fantastic. Another character who gets killed off, who I kind of assumed would get killed off, but I didn't really think I would care that much, is the Polka Dot Man. The Polka Dot Man in this movie is a really fun character who's twisted and messed up. He's such a perfect choice for James Gunn to use, and whenever he gets killed, it's in kind of a humorous way, but it's also kind of sad. I didn't have the emotional reaction that I had whenever, like, Rick Flag died, but still, I was just like, oh, I liked him. I didn't want him to die. Fuck you. That was great. And the final moment that I really want to stress, and it's something I kind of talked about in the earlier part of the video, but it's the moment where these characters basically say, fuck you, Waller. They achieve their mission, but in the process of doing so, unleash Starro on this town, on this city. And they're told to just abandon it, because the U.S. will consider that a win, because it's a country that, like, the U.S. doesn't have diplomatic relations with anymore. And one by one, the characters are all pretty much just like, no, fuck that. These are innocent people. These are normal citizens, women and children, who don't deserve this kind of fate, and we're not going to leave them to it when it's us who put them in that situation to begin with, and the U.S. who's responsible for it in the long run. And those moments, like all the moments of these characters stepping up and making the choice to do the right thing, is very powerful in this movie in a way that in the first movie it wasn't. I mean, it works on so many levels, and James Gunn knows how to set up the characters and move the plot in a direction so that this moment that is totally a cliche moment, it happens in all kinds of these movies, just hits, and it hits you like right here. And it works on every possible level. Like, it shouldn't, but he's done his job so well, and these actors have done their jobs so well, and the screenwriters did their job so well, that is completely and 100% effective. It does not feel heavy-handed, it does not feel like any of those things, and there is something, which again, this is the Suicide Squad movie, it shouldn't have this effect, but it does. Something that's really been missing out of almost all of the DC movies as of recent, except for maybe Wonder Woman, the first one, is the movie being inspiring. Like, the movies with Superman, as much as they want to talk about, oh, well, people loved him and all this, like, there's never a moment where Superman is inspiring in any of those movies. But in this movie, where you see bad guys who now have achieved their mission and they have nothing to gain and only have something to lose, and literally have bombs in their head that might get detonated because of the choice they're about to make, they decide to do the right thing because it's the right thing. That might be the most inspiring thing that has come out of the Snyderverse. And it is, again, a moment that should be cliche, and it shouldn't work, and it shouldn't be in this movie, but it is, and it works perfectly. And it really, like, despite the fact that I loved the whole movie, the fact that they were able to sell that moment and convince me and get me emotionally hooked on that moment is what solidified it for me. I absolutely fucking love this movie in every respect. As you can see in this video, I keep stumbling over myself because I literally just watched it right before filming this, and I haven't written a script, this is just me, my initial reaction pouring out, and I'm fucking excited still, because this movie was fan-fucking-tastic. I absolutely loved every minute of it, every second of it, and I could probably gush on like this for another 30 minutes, but I'm sure I've already repeated myself and tripped over my words and made myself look like a babbling moron enough, so I think I'm going to end it right here. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope that you checked out Suicide Squad and that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Whether you did or you didn't, let me know down in the comments below why you did or didn't. Again, as long as it's not a death threat, then I'm happy to hear you out if you didn't enjoy this movie. And if you liked the video, please leave a like and share it with some friends. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe so you can check out all the dope content I've got coming out here in the future. Thank you very much, children of the screen. I hope you all have a good one. Nerd Scum. Out.